What's up and welcome to the first of what I hope will be a continued series of how we kind of break down certain setups. So that might range from anything from a commercial setup, an interview, or anything interesting that my good friend and colleague Antonio, who's sitting right here. Say hello, Antonio.
What's up, guys?
So for those of you that don't know, Antonio is Cayman's only key grip on island, and we're very proud and happy to have him here at Armada Films. Pretty useful guy to have around. So with Antonio's help, we're going to break down this first scene, which we did for a client of ours. Shout out to the Rec Room. Essentially, the client wanted us to create a top-down shot of some of the products that they sell, which in this case is food, right? So they're a gym, but they also have a variety of sort of
meal prep kind of thing?
Yeah, it's like a meal prep service. And so the idea behind this was to create a short reel for social media that just basically advertised this. We wanted to get creative with it, and so let's have a look at what we created. All right, so really simple concept, but nice, clean looking reel. Hopefully you agree. And so let's kind of take a look at how we accomplish this. Walk us through how you rigged this particular setup up.
So the first thing that you want to think about whenever you're doing overhead work is what camera are you using, right? Because a big thing that I always advocate for is the safety, not only for camera, making sure you get a rig that can stabilize and hold it securely, but you also want to protect whatever you're shooting overhead, whether it's products, people, whatever it is. So the first thing that we looked at was we're going to use a C80. So I knew it's not that heavy of a camera, so I was comfortable with just putting, two stands. We're inside controlled environment. We can get 2 C stands, just run a boom arm across. We have a cage, so I was fine with just putting 2 spigots on either end, grabbing those with grip heads, and then those were attached to Cardellini's that were grabbing the boom arm overhead, and then of course safety chain through the cage around the boom pole.
And so that's basically the rig for the overhead shots. Now, obviously, we knew we were shooting vertical, so we framed the camera for that purpose. There isn't going to be a wide version of this sort of mini commercial made. It is just a tall reel. Sometimes we will shoot in 6K and then just crop the reel format out. But because of the placement of the food and all that kind of stuff, it made sense to shoot it as it was going to be displayed, right? Mm-hmm. For lighting, this was super simple. First off, the room that we're in, as you can see, is incredibly
super bright.
Yeah, super bright. There's like windows wrapped around, I think 2 of the 4 walls basically, and they're floor to ceiling windows. And so just to keep a little bit of consistency on our food, which was the subject, we did set up, I think it was a 600D with the light dome. I think that egg crate on that as well, and just kind of got as close to the food as possible. Yeah, and just spilled a tiny bit of light.
It's worth mentioning too. There's a whole mathematical science behind overheads, where if you really wanted to go into it, you can actually determine how high you need to put your overhead depending on what focal length you're using and what you want to see.
Right.
So, and I've had to make those calculations before for other shoots.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think like with this particular shoot, obviously it's kind of a run and gun, right?
Running gun, super, I knew
we had to change both frames too.
I knew for our framing, we were super tight. We didn't need to see off the table, so I knew 2 C stands, and I think we were on the 50 for most of it. We were solid.
Cool. So that's the rundown. Now, I guess any viewers who might be watching, especially like new content creators, new videographers who are wanting to do kind of cool shots like this, overhead shots are pretty popular, especially in like the YouTube realm, right? Whether it's like an unboxing video, using it creatively like we did here. There's tons of use cases for an overhead shot. So I think maybe what would be beneficial is if we did a rundown, not recreating this rig in the studio, but actually recreating a top-down shot with minimal equipment.
On a budget.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's some things you're just going to have, especially for safety's reason, bro.
Yeah, for safety.
So what do you think?
Sure.
What do you think we need? If we were just, we've got, forget lighting even right now. Let's just say we wanted to get a clean overhead shot. We've got our camera. We'll use one of our other smaller cameras just to demonstrate this in the studio. What kind of equipment do you think is the bare minimum that you need to get a safe overhead shot done?
I think for entry level, you don't have a ton of gear. I would say at minimum for just safety wise, at least one full C-stand, sandbags, a safety chain, and at least a cage and a spigot to be able to attach. I would say those things that I listed at the bare minimum for like starter level is what you would go with.
Hey guys, Future Rob just chiming in here real quick. We realize that there are obviously cheaper overhead rigs that you could get from the likes of Elgato and different manufacturers like that, but these are typically designed more for sort of YouTube home studio setups. That's what you're going for. Obviously, that's a great solution for you. With this channel, we're trying to gear our tutorials and information more towards those who are trying to elevate their production. Maybe you have your own small production company, and that's what you're utilizing these tutorials for. Obviously as well, with purchasing a C-stand, you have multiple use cases for that C-stand. It won't just be used for your overhead shot. You can use it to rig lighting and all sorts of other things on set. All right, back to the video. All right, guys, well, it's one thing to walk you through how to do this in a budget, but we want to actually demonstrate how you would go about doing this with some of the equipment that Antonio just mentioned. So one C-stand, you know, a basic DSLR mirrorless camera. I guess we could throw a light up too. You should have a light.
Yeah, you should.
You should have a light. Antonio mentioned sandbags as well, but it's important to kind of, we will be using sandbags this year just because it's easier to do so. But if you don't have sandbags, you just got to find another way to weight down that C-stand.
Yeah,
right?
taking a backpack, throwing it on one of the knuckles,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
Having a buddy come to your shoot and just have him literally place it on it. Yeah, and just tell him don't move because you'll shake it, you know? So.
All right, well, let's get to it. We're going to break down this setup that we're currently in, and we're going to rebuild it and show you exactly how we would build a overhead shot on a tight budget.
All right, so let's jump into building an overhead rig on a budget. We got two small cameras here, and they're a little bit different. This one has a cage. This one does not. This one can work if you run your spigot into your small little mounting point down there, and the little straps that you get for the neck lanyard, you can run your safety chain through that, but I prefer to use the cage just because it gives you more options for mounting points if you're doing any other type of rigs, and to me it is safer just because it's more solid. So let's do a little bit of prep work. Get your spigot into the bottom of the cage. Make sure that's nice and tight. And for your safety chain, if you're ever rigging something and you feel like your safety chain isn't long enough to just make the loop, what you can do is put your safety chain through and then pass through that little loop. That way you have that, and then you can go around whatever you're attaching to and grab that. We will just have more than enough slack to just go the regular way. So moving over to our C-stand, setting up your C-stand, the main thing that you want to look at is your big leg. You want that in the direction for wherever the weight is going to be. So we wouldn't want to have the small leg facing the table because our camera is going this way. We want to make sure that our big leg is facing that direction, and the knuckles that are on the C-stand that control raising and lowering it. If you're standing at the back of the C-stand and the big leg is facing forward, we want those on the left side. So this C-stand allows you to spin it. We want to make sure that they are to the left. When it comes to sandbagging C-stands, if you sandbag any leg and your bag is touching the ground, that's incorrect. Your C-stand actually isn't taking any weight at that point. The ground is taking the weight. Most people, when they're sandbagging, will just put one on the big leg, and this is fine, but my preferred method is to actually go around the base of the C-stand, give a little push, and if you want to make it more stable, grab a second bag, go the opposite direction on that sandbag, and push down. So now that our prep work is done, we are going to get into the second stage of our build. We'll open up our knuckle on the grip head at the top of the C-stand, get that into a rough position. And something that I like to do whenever I'm doing an overhead with just the arm and I'm attaching something, you can see our main mounting point that we're gonna go through right there. Our second one right there, I actually like to feed the safety chain through that. Make sure you don't pinch it, just so it's an extra bit of security. And we can also wrap around the arm when we go to attach. So whenever you're rigging your arm outward, you actually want the arm on the top of your knuckle. That way, if we tighten that, whenever you go to pull down and there's any weight here, this is actually going to be tightening on itself, and you don't have to worry about the arm slipping and your attachment dropping. So we'll open this guy up a little bit. We'll slide our camera in. Start to tighten that back up. And again, I have the spigot going into the top of the knuckle there. That way our weight, when it's pulling down, this is going to be tightening on itself. So once that's locked, I always go hand tight and then try to give it a quarter turn just to make sure it's really secure. So next up, we're going to safety, and this is why I like having a cage. It gives you more options to mount to. We're going to wrap our safety cable around the arm. We'll go through the cage, and then we will attach it together. Raising it, we'll just open that if you need to go higher. Something that is worth noting, if you have a bigger camera, if it's a bigger weight, something that you can do if you have it is grab an extra arm. So this is a wide jaw grip head, and it's not needed, but if you can have it, it's just going to make your rig a lot more stable, and you'll feel a lot more comfortable when you go to extend it out. Definitely something I would advise if you're using a bigger camera, just because it's going to give you another mounting point. So again, this part is attaching to the C-stand. We're going to have this on the left side with the rest of the knuckles. Loosen that slightly. We'll slide our arm in. And make sure everything is nice and tight. And this is just going to help support your arm and help take out some of that sag that you may have if you have a bigger camera, and it's also just going to make it a little bit more stable. So adding this extra arm gives us that triangle shape, which is ideal for what you want for making your rig stable and secure. So that is our overhead rig on a budget. Obviously, if you have an external monitor, that's just going to make your life a lot easier, but if you got a flip out screen, that works completely fine too.
Thanks so much for watching this first episode of how we break down a shot. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some valuable and useful information. We'll be back here shortly with Antonio to break down another shot for you. If you have any requests, if you want to know how to do something, we're all ears, so drop a comment below, let us know, and we'll do our best. Thanks for watching.